It looks like the Clemson Tigers are going to be leaving the ACC soon. What's their best landing spot? What's the best case scenario for the Tigers with this whole conference realignment and lawsuit going on?
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host, John Bivens, here bringing you everything you need to know about Clemson sports. You can follow us over on Twitter at @IamJohnBivens for some stuff over on there. Keep up with us on Twitter there. We also are a credentialed media member, which means that we are credentialed with Clemson University through baseball, basketball, football to go down to sit in the press game for games. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes we'll sit in the press game or box. Sometimes we'll just sit with the fans, because sitting with the fans is a lot more fun. But we do get to go be a part of press conferences, interviews with players. We're going to the ACC kickoff next week, or in 2 weeks, being able to see some interviews there down in Charlotte. But anyway, I am your host. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and over on YouTube. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day, having experts talk about your local sports every single day with those kind of content. So if you're interested, make sure you're checking out all the Locked On Sports. You can hear, thanks so much for joining us here on the Clemson one, but if you're more in the ACC, after you listen to this one, go give the Locked On ACC a listen. They got a great platform over there, and those guys do a great job on that as well, talking about all the ACC as well. We might not be talking about ACC for long with Clemson, but today is Thursday, July 11th. We got a great episode for you today, talking about conference realignment. We're talking about our yearly recruiting rankings, where we have landed each year in our football recruiting, and then EA Sports College Football released their top 100 player rankings for the upcoming game. So let's dive into that and talk about all that as well. We're grateful for all our sponsors that make this show possible, and so let's just dive right in. So if you are any kind of into sports at all, whether it's a lot, if you're heavy into sports or just a little, if you are just somewhat around sports, you've heard about the lawsuits with Clemson and FSU. What's going on is people think that Clemson and FSU are suing the ACC because they won't leave. That's not technically true. These lawsuits are actually over how much they have to pay to get out of the ACC, and how much they're making while with the current agreements. How much is it fair? Is it not fair for how much they have to pay? So ACC has a contracted negotiation with every single ACC school for a certain amount of years. And then at the end of those years, if they want to leave before that contract's up, if they want to go to a different conference, they have to pay a lump sum. And the amount that Clemson or FSU would have to pay is drastically more than the ACC makes in a year. Like, it is a massive amount, a ridiculous amount, much more than the universities see. So that is ridiculous. That's what they're suing over. They're suing over based on what's happening, based on how much money ACC is making from ESPN, how they negotiated how much the ACC makes compared to SEC, Big 10, Big 12. ACC doesn't make hardly any as much when it comes to football from TV rights, that kind of stuff. And because of that, Clemson and FSU aren't, their opinion is they're not being received the best care the ACC promised, the best negotiations, the best profit. They're not receiving what ACC promised them, so they broke their contract. And ACC is like, nah, you signed the contract. You've got to deal with it. Doesn't matter what you think. You signed the contract. So that's a very grossly shortened explanation and brief explanation highlight of what's going on with the lawsuits. Why is this important, though? It's important because right now the lawsuits are happening right now. In the past couple of days, there's been a big event for both universities in their lawsuits. Right now, the big event for FSU is that they recently received an unredacted format and document from ESPN talking about a negotiation with ACC, FSU, all that. So that was huge for them. Could be a good leap in the right direction for FSU. If you want more information on that, check out the Locked On FSU podcast and Locked On ACC podcast. They're diving into a lot more detail on that. Clemson's big one was not in favor of the university. So Clemson originally sued ACC first in disagreement with what we just talked about. Then ACC then countersued at Clemson. The problem was Clemson sued in Pickens County, which is where Clemson's located. ACC sued Clemson in Mecklenburg County in North Carolina, where conference headquarters is at in Charlotte. The reason that's important is because they want to argue in just one. They don't want to fight in both. And so Clemson is trying to say, nah, ACC, we can't fight in North Carolina because we're a South Carolina school. ACC saying you actually play a bunch of games in North Carolina and conferences here where you sign the contract. You have to file here. So Clemson tried to go to the North Carolina judge and say, hey, this isn't right. We shouldn't be arguing this. We're having pretty much the same disagreement, same lawsuit down in South Carolina. And the judge recently just said Clemson has to have the case. It is not going to get dismissed in North Carolina. So that's big news. Big news about home. Obviously, both people want their home state advantage. I don't know if that's a real thing when it comes to courts, but apparently it is what these schools think. So those are new news about it. Now we go into the conference realignment. Either way, no matter what the outcome is, it looks like Clemson is going to be leaving the ACC. That seems like the biggest reason. And the big reason is that the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12 are making drastically more money. I mean, it's gross how much more money they're making per school, per conference as a whole compared to the ACC. And it's because of the ACC's deal with ESPN, based on viewership, based on TV rights, based on all that kind of stuff. ACC schools aren't making nearly as much when they're on primetime games compared to SEC, compared to Big 10, Big 12. And so Clemson is looking for that. They're one of the blue bloods of college football right now. They're playing excellent, obviously off year last year, but overall they're a great university, one of the best schools in the nation when it comes to football. And so with that being said, they want to be paid like one of the best schools in the nation, not like just another school. And so they want to join a conference that's going to pay them the most. And so we've seen a lot of reports come out. Yesterday, so many different reports. I saw multiple people to put on Twitter about per sources, Clemson's joining the SEC. Per sources, Clemson's joining Big 10. Per sources, Clemson's joining the Big 12. You've seen all that. Some of the sources have been more credible, others have been less, but you've seen all of it. Everybody's seen all of it. Other people saying they're not going anywhere, they're staying in the ACC. We don't know where they're going to go. We don't know right now. It is way too early to have that. Apparently, Big 10 and Big 12 have had conversations with Clemson and FSU. Another reporter said that Miami, Notre Dame were also in those. What's interesting, though, is this. Clemson, what I've been reading a lot recently is that the Big 10, when they offer when the Big 12 offered Clemson and FSU, they're offering that they have a set amount of money set aside that they could pay Clemson, FSU, Miami, and Notre Dame much more than the already Big 12 schools that are in the conference. And if that's the case, then they would join a conference. They would make already more per game based on their media rights, based on the rights that come with being in that conference, how they make more than the ACC, but they also would make more than every other school in the Big 12. If I'm Big 12 school, I'm like, really? Like the Big 12 schools, just in case you're curious, is Arizona State, Arizona, BYU, Baylor, Cincinnati, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, Utah, and West Virginia. So that's the case there. There's so much rumors going around. There's so many rumors that are like, what's going on? Like, what's really is this about? What is really going to happen here? So that's where it is right now. Honestly, I think if I'm Clemson, here's my ranking. If I'm Clemson, here's what I hope happens. Number one, I want them to stay in the ACC, but I'm taking off my hat and putting on Clemson hat. I think my option number one, say everything works out great. Option number one is this. I think you start first choice would be to join the Big 10 or SEC, because those two schools make drastically more than the Big 12, who makes more than the ACC. So I think your option one is to join SEC or Big 10. They're the highest paid. They're the highest revenue. They're the highest known nationally conferences. They're growing. They have a lot of money coming in. I think joining them would probably be their option number one. Option number two is I think this, and this is probably what I wish would happen. I wish they would reform the ACC, rejoin then, stay there, but the ACC would reform and split into a smaller conference, that they would kick out members. 18 teams is too many with the amount of money the ACC is bringing in. And that's another thing, where the ACC has grown since they originally all signed the contracts to be a part of it. They've grown and their revenue hasn't increased, so now their shares between the teams have gotten smaller because there's more teams. Because of that, there's disagreement. So a second option would be rejoin the ACC, stay there, but have the conference shift a little bit, kick some people out, go back to those 10 schools about where you're making just as much money as you used to be. Or option three would be to join another league, which the only other power team, and they're not going to leave a power conference, Power 4 conference, would be to join the Big 12. Whether that might be the realistic, there's reports saying the SEC has declined FSU and Clemson. That's all out there. So that's where it is right now. There's you an update to what's happening with conference realignment, where they're going to go, what's going to happen. Stay tuned, and soon episodes following today, maybe tomorrow, maybe later on next week. We'll talk more about this lawsuit and where Clemson should go, what we think should happen, all that kind of aspect. But that's an up-to-date format right now of where Clemson's at. Now let's dive in a little bit more in the specific Clemson. Dabo is a great recruiter. How has his recruiting rankings been throughout the past couple years and then next year as well? We'll talk about that and more in just a second, right after this break.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Guess what, guys? I don't know if you noticed, but I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down, we get fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. I can picture it right now. Wow, dropping a bet on the Atlanta Braves to beat the Phillies, or the Yankees to beat the Boston Red Sox. Oh, I can picture it right now. You can do the same exact thing. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. Stop dreaming and do it. I'm telling you, go do it right now. FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Dabo Swinney might not be known for his transfers. Dabo Swinney might not be known, obviously not for his transfers. He might not be known as being the best transfer guy out there. He is known as being one of the best recruiters, and that's not a new thing. Since he's came in, he's been a strong recruiter. Honestly, since 2015, we're one of the best 7 recruiting schools in the nation. We're one that has averaged in the top, or been at least in the top 15 of one of the main recruiting services, ESPN Rivals 24/7, since 2011. We're one of only 7 schools that do that. We're with Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and then Clemson. Dabo Swinney is a recruiter. He knows what he's doing. And so with that being the case, let's take a deep dive into just how each year by year has gone. So like I said, we are using mainly ESPN, but we're going to be bouncing forth between the Rivals 24/7, kind of putting those together for it. But since 2015, that 2015 class was number 4 overall in ESPN and Rivals, number 9 24/7, but number 4 overall average there. 2016 was about average, number 7th class. 2017 was ESPN had him at 10th, 24/7, or Rivals had him at 22nd. 24/7 had 16th. So you can average about 16th. 18 was number 5, pretty high up there. 19 was number 10. 2020 was the number 1 class in the nation according to ESPN, number 2 according to the other sites. 21 was number 4, 22 was 14, 23 was 11, 2024 was 15. And now this year, in this upcoming year, we are 2025, the current recruiting class that we're starting to get filled out. We're looking to be about the 7th ranked. We started off 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Now we dropped to 5th. Now we're about the 7th rank overall. And the class is pretty much being full. It's coming down pretty close to the end of it. Right now, they have 13 different prospect or accepted commits right now in the 2025 class. It likely has not a lot of spots left. I'm guessing that it has about 5 spots left, probably 2 for offensive linemen, a wide receiver, a linebacker, and a safety. That would be my guess, just with the people that are graduating out, with the people that are leaving, maybe getting drafted, that kind of aspect. So I'm guessing they have room for about 5 more prospects to be committed for next year's class. Honestly, but the exciting part, we got some new news about some recruits yesterday, is that right now there's 2 players being pursued by Clemson University that are both 4-star top 100 players that are very much looking like Clemson's going to be where they land. The first one we're going to talk about is Jordan Young. Jordan Young came out and he announced that his final 4 schools are Clemson, Florida State, Michigan, and North Carolina State Wolfpack. He has announced that his commitment won't be until October 12th. honestly, that's really late. He is a highly caliber player. He's a 4-star. He's ranked 89th overall in the class, no matter the position, 89th overall. He's a safety, and he is solid. Honestly, he's kind of got that multiple style of gameplay to him. He can play safety, he plays wide receiver as well, and he's really good at both. I think if he went to another school, he might play more at another. Like NC State, they need a little bit more help at receiver. They might put him at receiver if he goes there. Florida State could go either way. Michigan either way. Clemson, though, it feels like Clemson wide receiver the next couple years. We've got a really young class this year. It feels like that safety spot would be really where he fit in there. That'd be awesome to see him sign there. But he's 6 foot, 184 pounds, ranked as a 4-star in 24/7 composite score. So that would be excellent to have him there. That October 12th, that's a late day to announce. Most players at his caliber are either already signed or signing way before them, or already committed or committed way before then. So he has it set at October 12th. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he came out and was like, actually, I'm going to do it a little bit earlier. It's now September or August. Probably not August, probably September. But that would be my guess. That would be something that I would really expect. Again, he's an athlete. This kid is an athlete. He plays basketball, starts on his basketball team, plays track at high school. He's a wide receiver and a starter, plays both sides of the ball, starts on both sides of the ball. Doesn't play, obviously, the whole game, but he plays both. He's really, really talented, a great athlete. So having him come to Clemson would be a great impact on that. I think him coming into that 2025 class, which is already 7th best in the nation, would boost us up. We continue to have a really, really strong class. 2025 is looking like it's going to be one of our best classes that we've had in a long time. People are saying Dabo can't transfer. Nobody's recruiting his butt off and is improving a lot compared to other schools. Obviously, it's possible Young will not go to Clemson. We're one of the 4, but it's looking heavily like he does. He's from North Carolina, so we're close. He's from Monroe area. I think he would be great. Another recruit that is a little bit more, he's not locked into Clemson, but it looks like he is Bryce Davis. Bryce Davis is a defensive end. He's 59th overall on 24/7 Sports. According to On3 Recruiting, they've predicted and said that he's going to be at Clemson University. He's a 4-star defensive end. According to On3, he's number 69 in the nation, number 8 overall edge in the 2025 class. Man, he is someone special. He's ugly. He pushes through people. He's strong. He's got this crazy strength to him. I think he would be absolutely dominant for us. There's no timetable. He hasn't said his Final Four schools. He hasn't said where he's committed to or anything like that. Hasn't put out a date. But it's looking, the confidence level that they put out for On3 is at like 60% right now for Bryce Davis to join us. If these two players come, if Bryce Davis and Jordan Young come and be a part of the Clemson Tigers and our addition to that 2025 class, that would make it 11 4-star recruits. Still no 5 stars, but 11 4-star recruits. I know we said that I didn't see a spot where we needed a defensive lineman, considering, like we said, I think we have 2 offensive linemen, a wide receiver, linebacker, and safety. I think those are the spots we need in this class. But with the caliber Davis of Bryce Davis, you're going to accept him. You're going to make room for him. You're going to shift someone to be a linebacker. You're going to have an extra defensive lineman, and you're going to be fine with it because he is a player that can make an impact day one. So really excited to see that. Honestly, I mean it. We just read through those stats of how the Clemson recruiting classes has landed each year and has been each year. I think the 2025 class could be a class that rivals that 2020 class, that number 1 in the nation. I'm not saying that it would be number 1 in the nation. It looks like we're pretty set that top 5, top 10 level. But I think long term, we could be looking back in 2028 and saying that 2025 class really made a difference for Clemson University. So excited to see that. Excited to see how these players grow, how they develop, how they continue growing. So great stuff. As we're talking about player rankings, college football comes out next week. If you pre-order, it comes out the 16th. If not, it comes out Friday. They released their top 100 players. Where did Clemson players land? How many do we have in there? What did the breakdown look for all that? We're going to talk about all that and more in just a second after the break. And we're back. Welcome to the Locked on Clemson podcast. Hey, just a reminder, we are trying to grow this community. We are so appreciative to our everydayers. Those of you that listen to our show every single day, that are subscribed and faithful fans of the podcast, we appreciate you. There is no bigger compliment when it comes to podcasts and videos than someone sitting down and watching or listening to it. That is the biggest compliment you could do, because you're saying your time is worth watching this video. And so I want you to know I appreciate that more than anything. That is a huge compliment. That is something I take that very seriously, because I don't want to ever put out garbage stuff. I don't want to ever put out anything that's like, why am I listening to this? Because if you're showing me the respect to listen, I want to be respectful to you and make sure I'm putting out content that is applicable, that is new, that is good stuff that you want to hear. So we appreciate you. I'm so grateful for every single one that listens to this show, even if this is the first time. Thanks so much for dropping by, giving it a listen. We appreciate it. We would love to grow this community. So make sure you're sharing this with other Clemson fans. Hit that subscribe button so we can continue growing this. We're on the track, on a path to race to 1,000. Since we took over this podcast, we've averaged about 70 subscribers in about a 2-month time period. We would love to keep that up. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep striving. Let's keep trying to get better. So we would love for you to help us share, help us grow by sharing this with other people. Hit that subscribe button and joining us over on social media. But with all that being said, if you aren't new to the podcast, if you have been listening, if you're an everydayer, you know we are stoked about the college football game. Clemson, we talked about yesterday. If you haven't listened to yesterday's episode, go listen to the last segment of that podcast. Clemson went all out to make sure college football, when you're playing it, you feel like you're actually at Clemson, with audio, with pictures, with stadiums, with designs, with uniforms, with helmet stickers, with everything. This game's going to be electric. And yesterday, college football put out their top 100 players in the game. And man, I am so excited about this. So we want to go through and we want to break down the top players in this, top players overall in the game. First, of course, we're going to start with Clemson's players. We're going to start with where they are at, with how the Clemson players aligned, where they ranked. So Clemson had 2 players to land in the top 100 players. Overall, we had both were defensive side. We had the number 1 overall linebacker with Barrett Carter. Barrett came in at the 15th ranked overall. He's a 94 overall, 89 speed, 94 acceleration, 79 strength, 89 awareness, 88 jumping. Going to be a great player. He's going to be a player that people are going to want to play with. So excited. I'm pumped for him. He deserves it. Top 15 player overall in the game. And then we had a second player, Peter Woods, our defensive tackle. He's going to be great. He's going to be electric. Man, mark that name down if you don't already know it. He's a younger player, but he's going to be great throughout the year. If he doesn't get drafted, he's going to make great impact not only this year, but next year as well and the year after. But he came in as the 91st overall player, ranked player. He is a 90 overall, then a 75 speed, 89 acceleration, 94 strength, 87th awareness, and an 81 jumping. So I'm excited about that. That's something huge that I love that those 2 players getting represented. I wish a couple more would have landed in there. If you ask me who, that's the problem. I think there's some great players, but I don't think any of them have proved themselves to be that yet. Cade Klubnik definitely hasn't. Phil Maffa, I think if you ask me, I think he is a top 100 player. But with Phil Maffa or with Will Shipley being there last year, he really didn't have a chance to truly come in and prove that he deserved to be that. So that's why I don't think he was on this list. So 2 feels right. When we look at overall defensive tackles, Peter Woods did rank 7th out of all the 7th best defensive tackle. Mason Graham from Michigan was the 1st overall. He was 8th overall, 1st defensive tackle. Peter Woods was the only one from the ACC. So that's exciting to see. And then when we look at other positions, we're just going to break down some positions and let you know where they're at. When it comes to quarterbacks, there was 8 quarterbacks that landed in the top 100 rankings. And honestly, this is what I think this truly is accurate of this year. I was talking to a friend of mine, Michael Craver. He hosts the Duke Blue Central podcast. If you're a Blue Devils fan, give the podcast, the Locked on Duke podcast, a listen. They got great stuff over there with JJ, but also Michael Craver at Duke Blue Central, some great stuff. But I was talking to Michael, and we were talking about how there was no players. The highest overall rated quarterback was 17th overall. I think that's accurate because when you think about the quarterbacks, there's not really one quarterback that's like, oh, yeah, he's going to be excellent. Caleb Williams was a quarterback that was like, he's going to be a first-round draft pick. You knew that immediately. There isn't any of those right now. And so I think it's accurate where it ranked. The 8 quarterbacks that landed on this list, Caden Salter from Liberty was the 90th overall ranked, 8th best quarterback. He's got 90 overall. Jalen Daniels from Kansas was the 79th overall. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, was 73rd. Jalen Milroe with Alabama, 71. All of them are 90 overalls. And then a huge jump. From 71, there isn't another one until number 30, which is Dylan Gabriel over at Oregon, 92 overall. Quinn Ewers at Texas, he's 27th, 92nd overall. Carson Beck with Georgia, 18th, 93 overall. And then when it comes down, the best quarterback, according to the game, is Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. He is the 17th overall ranked player, a 93 overall ranking. There's exciting stuff there, really exciting stuff there. I love to see it. Now, let's switch positions a little bit more. We're going to dive into a couple more position focus. We're going to look at halfbacks. When it comes to halfbacks, there is a lot on this list. A lot on this list. ACC had a couple halfbacks listed. Damian Martinez from Miami was the 67th overall ranked player. And then you got Jaden Ott from California, new ACC school. He was the 25th overall player. And then the highest ACC running back was the 3rd running back, Omarion Hampton from Carolina, was 22nd overall. The highest overall running back was Ollie Gordon, the 2nd from the Big 12, Oklahoma State. He was the 3rd overall player in the 2024 class. So that exciting to see. Honestly, I'm pumped. I'm so excited about this game. I'm so excited about what's going to happen. I'm excited about the players. I'm excited just overall about every aspect of it. The last thing we want to do is we're going to go through the ACC and just talk about some high players that are there, high players that are in the ACC that are ranked on this game, because that's what we do. We're ACC fans, so we're going to pull for them. But overall, there was a lot of players. When you look at ACC, we talked about Peter Woods making it. Patrick Payton from the left end from FSU made the list. Reuben Bain Jr. from Miami made the list. Like we said, Jaden Ott was high up there. Omarion Hampton was high up there. Barrett Carter was the highest player from the ACC ranked on this list. That we already talked about, the 15th overall player, number 1 linebacker from Clemson. He's up there. We got a couple more players that are on the top 25. Quincy Riley, cornerback from Louisville, was the 40th overall. Jonas Sanker, safety from Virginia, 39th. That was all in that range. And then the last range, I think there's one more. I'm sorry, there's a couple more. So we talked about, or the Camion Rucker, right in from Carolina's up there. Logan Parr from SMU, left guard's up there. Dorian Strong, cornerback for Virginia Tech. Damian Martinez, we talked about. Orion Gaston II, tight end from Syracuse. A tight end player making up there. That's great. Jake Brenningstool, I think, is another top 100 player. Understand why he's not on the list, but think he should be. And last ACC player on the list is the left end, Ashton Gillette from Louisville on this list. So I know that was just rambling a bunch of names, but I'm excited, man. There's a lot of players in there. ACC's having a presence. Clemson players are getting the respect they need. If you're not pumped about this game, what are you doing? You need to get pumped because it's going to be excellent. I would love if we had some fans on here that bought this game. There isn't a crossplay dynasty, but if you have a PlayStation 5, let's run a dynasty together where we're all playing one dynasty together, compete. I think that'd be electric. Let's do something like that. If you're interested in that, hit us up on Twitter. Drop a comment and let us know. But with all that being said, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, later this week, tomorrow, we're going to talk about some more stuff football related. Next week, we're going to dive more into that lawsuit as news continues to come up. But let us know your thoughts on today's topics. Reach out to us over on Twitter. Drop a comment. We would love to have a conversation with you about what your feedback is on what we talked about today. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, whether you get your podcast Audible on one of the many platforms. We're available everywhere Audible. So if you're driving down the road, or if you're driving down the road going to work, or sitting in the car at the gym working out, or at the grocery store, whatever you're doing, you can listen to us wherever you're going. Or if you're more video format, hit us up on YouTube, watch us over there, hit that subscribe button there. That way this can be your first listen every single day. We can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode. Until then, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring. And as always, go Tigers.